What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors walks onto a morning talk show expecting a respectful conversation, only to be met with condescension and disrespect from a host who thinks she can say whatever she wants? In just 38 seconds, Lara Spencer's smug attitude would turn a simple interview into the most explosive moment in Good Morning America history. The studio lights were bright that morning as Denzel Washington settled into the famous curved couch. He'd done hundreds of interviews before. This should have been easy. A quick chat about his new film, some laughs with the hosts, and he'd be on his way. But from the moment Lara Spencer opened her mouth, something felt off. "So, Denzel," Lara began with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, "you're here promoting another one of your serious, dramatic films. Don't you ever get tired of being so intense all the time?" The other hosts, Michael Strawn and Robin Roberts, exchanged quick glances. That was an odd way to start an interview. Denzel kept his composure, his legendary calm still intact. "I make the films that speak to me," he replied smoothly. "Films that tell important stories." Lara laughed, but it wasn't a warm laugh. It was the kind of laugh that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. "Important stories," she repeated, her voice dripping with something that sounded a lot like mockery. "Is that what we're calling it now? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you just keep playing the same character over and over again." Robin Roberts shifted in her seat. You could see the discomfort spreading across her face. Michael Strawn cleared his throat, clearly trying to think of a way to redirect the conversation. "Actually, Lara," Robin interjected, "Denzel's range is pretty incredible. He's done everything from Shakespeare to action films to—" "Oh, please, Robin," Lara cut her off with a wave of her hand. "Let's not pretend here. We all know what this is. It's the same tough guy routine he's been doing for 30 years. The temperature in the studio seemed to drop. Denzel's jaw tightened, just slightly. Anyone who knew him could see the warning signs. But Lara Spencer either didn't notice or didn't care. "You know what your problem is, Denzel," Lara continued, leaning back in her chair like she owned the place. "You take yourself way too seriously. This is morning television. We're supposed to be having fun here. Maybe you should try smiling more. Do you even know how to have fun?" Michael Strawn jumped in, his voice diplomatic but firm. "Come on, Lara. That's not fair. Denzel's one of the most talented actors of our generation." "Talented?" Lara scoffed. "Or just lucky. I mean, let's be honest about what's really happening in Hollywood these days. Everyone's so afraid to criticize certain people. Everyone just hands out praise like candy because they're terrified of being called out." The implication hung in the air like poison. Robin Roberts looked absolutely mortified. Her eyes went wide, and she opened her mouth to speak, but Denzel held up a single hand. He was done letting other people fight this battle for him. "Excuse me," Denzel said, his voice quiet but carrying the weight of thunder. "What exactly are you trying to say?" Lara smiled, clearly enjoying herself. "I'm just saying that maybe, just maybe, your career has been helped along by factors that have nothing to do with talent. That's all I'm saying." "Lara, stop!" Robin said firmly. "This is completely inappropriate." But Lara was on a roll now, and she wasn't stopping. "Why is it inappropriate to tell the truth? I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of walking on eggshells. This is my show, too, and I'll say what I think." "Your show?" Michael Strawn said, his voice rising. "Lara, you need to stop talking right now." "No, I don't think I will," Lara shot back. "You know what? I'm sick of guests coming on here thinking they're better than us. Thinking they're too good to answer real questions. This isn't some prestigious late-night show, Denzel. This is Good Morning America. We make you look good. We give you free publicity. The least you could do is show some gratitude instead of sitting there with that superior attitude." Denzel stared at her for a long moment. The silence was deafening. You could hear the cameras humming. You could hear someone breathing heavily off camera. The entire crew had stopped what they were doing to watch this disaster unfold in real time. Superior attitude, Denzel repeated slowly. Let me tell you something about attitude, Lara. I came here today to talk about a film that took 3 years to make. A film about real people, real struggles, real pain. I came here to share something meaningful with your audience. But instead, I've been insulted, belittled, and disrespected by someone who clearly has no idea what respect even means. Oh, here we go, Lara said, rolling her eyes dramatically. The lecture. I knew this was coming. I'm not lecturing you, Denzel said, his voice getting stronger. I'm simply responding to your incredible rudeness. You sit there in your comfortable chair, making your comfortable salary, and you think you can say whatever you want to, whoever you want. You think there are no consequences. Robin Roberts nodded, clearly in Denzel's corner. He's right, Lara. This has gone way too far. Stay out of this, Robin, Lara snapped. You always do this. You always take their side. Their side? Robin's voice was sharp now. What is that supposed to mean? Lara realized she might have gone too far, but she was too deep in to back down now. It means exactly what you think it means. Everyone's so sensitive these days. I can't say anything without someone getting offended. Michael Strawn stood up from his chair. His massive frame towered over the set. Lara, you need to apologize right now. I'm not apologizing for speaking my mind, Lara said defiantly. If Denzel can't handle a little honest criticism, maybe he should stick to his Hollywood bubble, where everyone tells him how great he is all day long. That was it. That was the moment. Denzel Washington slowly removed his microphone. He didn't rip it off. He didn't throw it. He carefully, deliberately unclipped it from his jacket and set it down on the coffee table in front of him with a soft click that somehow sounded louder than a gunshot. What are you doing? Lara asked, but her voice had changed now. There was a hint of panic creeping in. I'm leaving, Denzel said simply. I don't need this. I don't need you. And I certainly don't need to sit here and be disrespected on national television by someone who wouldn't know professionalism if it hit her in the face. You can't just leave, Lara sputtered. We're in the middle of a segment. Watch me, Denzel said, standing up. The cameras were still rolling. The whole world was watching. And Denzel Washington was done playing nice. Robin Roberts stood up too. Denzel, please. I'm so sorry. This isn't how we do things here. I know it's not, Denzel said gently, his anger clearly not directed at her. You've always been nothing but professional, Robin. You too, Michael. But I will not sit here and be spoken to like this. I've earned better than this. Oh, you've earned it, have you? Lara's voice was shrill now, desperation mixing with her arrogance. You think you're too important to be questioned? Denzel turned to look at her one last time. There's a difference between being questioned and being attacked. There's a difference between journalism and cruelty. And you, Lara Spencer, have just shown everyone watching the difference. Michael Strawn moved toward Denzel, his hand extended. Man, I am so sorry about this. Don't apologize for her, Denzel said, shaking Michael's hand firmly. You're not responsible for her behavior. Only she is. The producers were going crazy off camera. You could hear frantic whispers, people running around, someone shouting about going to commercial. But the cameras kept rolling. This was live television, and there was no stopping it now. If you walk out that door, Lara called out, her voice cracking, you'll never be invited back on this show again. Denzel stopped. He turned around slowly, and for a moment, everyone thought maybe, just maybe, he would sit back down. But then he smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had just realized he held all the power in the room. Lara, he said calmly, I wouldn't come back to this show if you paid me. In fact, I'd recommend that anyone with an ounce of self-respect think very carefully before sitting on that couch. Because if this is how you treat your guests, If this is how you conduct yourself, then this show doesn't deserve the people who come here to share their stories. Robin Roberts had tears in her eyes. Whether they were from embarrassment, anger, or sadness, it was hard to tell. Probably all three. Denzel, she said softly, I hope you know that this doesn't represent all of us. I know that, Robin, he replied warmly. I've always known that. Lara was standing now too, her face red, her hands shaking. You think you're so much better than everyone else. You think you can just walk away. I don't think I'm better than everyone else, Denzel corrected her. But I do think I'm better than this. Better than being treated like garbage by someone who seems to think that having a television show gives her the right to be cruel. Michael Strawn stepped between them, his voice low and urgent. Lara, please, just stop talking. But Lara couldn't stop. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. You're making a huge mistake, Denzel. Do you know how many people watch this show? Do you know how much power I have? Denzel laughed then. It was a real laugh, genuine and almost sad. Is that what you think this is about? Power? Let me tell you something about real power, Lara. Real power is knowing when to speak and when to listen. Real power is treating people with dignity, even when you disagree with them. Real power is understanding that your platform is a privilege, not a weapon. The studio was silent except for Denzel's voice. Even the crew had stopped moving. Everyone was transfixed. You came on this show, Lara said, her voice breaking, and you ruined everything. No, Robin Roberts said firmly, finding her voice. He didn't ruin anything. You did, Lara. You did this. Michael Strawn nodded. She's right. This is on you. Lara looked around, suddenly realizing she was alone. Her fellow hosts had turned against her. The crew was staring at her with disgust, and Denzel Washington, one of the most respected men in entertainment, was walking away from her show. Fine, she said, her voice small now. Go. See if I care. But everyone could see that she did care. She cared very much, because in the span of just a few minutes, she had destroyed her own credibility on live television. Denzel walked toward the exit, his head held high, his dignity intact. Robin Roberts moved to follow him, clearly wanting to apologize again, but he waved her off gently. It's okay, he said. You don't need to explain. I understand. As Denzel reached the studio door, one of the cameramen started clapping. Just a slow, steady clap. Then another crew member joined in. Then another. Within seconds, the entire crew was applauding. Not for the show, not for the drama, but for Denzel Washington, for standing up for himself with grace and strength. Lara stood frozen in the middle of the set, watching it all happen. Watching her colleagues applaud a guest who was walking out. Watching her co-hosts refuse to look at her. Watching everything a thought she had built crumble around her. We need to go to commercial, a producer finally shouted. Someone cut the feed. But it was too late. The damage was done. The world had seen everything. Every insult, every sneer, every moment of Lara Spencer's incredible arrogance and Denzel Washington's dignified response. Michael Strawn pulled off his own microphone. I need a break, he said to no one in particular. I need to get away from this. Robin Roberts was already walking off the set, her hand covering her mouth, clearly trying to process what had just happened. Lara stood alone on the set, the cameras finally cutting away, the lights dimming. She had come into work that morning, thinking she was untouchable, thinking she could say whatever she wanted, thinking her position gave her power over everyone who sat across from her. She had learned the hard way that respect cannot be demanded. It has to be earned. And in 38 seconds of unbridled arrogance, she had lost every ounce of respect she might have once had. Denzel Washington walked out of that building into the morning sun, his head high, his spirit unbroken. He had been insulted, attacked, and disrespected. But he had not lowered himself to Lara Spencer's level. He had not screamed or cursed or thrown things. He had simply stood up, spoken his truth, and walked away with his dignity intact. Behind him, the chaos continued. Producers scrambled to figure out what to do next. Network executives were probably already on the phone, damage control in full swing. Co-hosts tried to make sense of what they had just witnessed. But Denzel didn't look back. He didn't need to. He had said everything that needed to be said. He had drawn his line in the sand. And he had shown the world that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away from people who don't deserve your time. The interview that was supposed to last 15 minutes had imploded in less than 10. What should have been a pleasant promotional conversation had turned into a masterclass in how not to treat your guests. And Lara Spencer, who had started the morning thinking she was in control, had learned that control is an illusion when you've lost the respect of everyone around you. In the green room, Denzel's publicist was frantically making calls, trying to understand what had happened. Other guests scheduled for later in the show were questioning whether they should still appear. The whole machine of morning television had ground to a halt because one host had decided that her ego was more important than basic human decency. Back on the set, Lara finally moved. She walked slowly to her chair and sat down, staring at the empty couch where Denzel had been sitting just minutes before. The makeup artists and stylists, who usually fussed over the hosts, kept their distance. No one wanted to be near her. No one wanted to be associated with what she had done. Michael Strawn returned to the set, but he didn't look at Lara. He sat in his chair, put his microphone back on, and stared straight ahead. Robin Roberts did the same, her face carefully neutral, but her disappointment obvious to anyone who knew her. "We're back in 2 minutes," a producer called out. "Let's try to salvage this show." But everyone knew there was no salvaging it. Not really. The damage was permanent. The internet was probably already exploding with clips and commentary. Social media was likely on fire, and Good Morning America's reputation had taken a hit it might never recover from. Lara tried to catch Robin's eye, but Robin wouldn't look at her. She tried to get Michael's attention, but he turned away. She was isolated in a room full of people, and it was entirely her own doing. "How are we going to explain this?" she asked quietly. Michael finally looked at her, his expression hard. "We're not going to explain anything. You are. This is your mess, Lara. You fix it." "But I didn't." "Yes, you did," Robin interrupted, her voice cold. "You absolutely did. You insulted a guest on live television. You made implications that were completely out of line. You disrespected not just Denzel, but this entire show and everyone who works on it." Lara's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration and anger. She still didn't fully understand what she had done wrong. She still thought she was the victim somehow. "I was just trying to have an honest conversation," she protested weakly. "No," Michael said firmly. "You were trying to tear someone down to make yourself feel bigger, and instead, you made yourself look incredibly small." The stage manager counted down. "Live in 5, 4, 3. The cameras came back on. Robin Roberts plastered on a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. Michael Strawn did the same, and Lara Spencer sat there, trying to look composed, but failing miserably. "Welcome back to Good Morning America," Robin said, her voice steady despite everything. "We want to apologize for the disruption you just witnessed. That is not who we are, and it's not how we conduct ourselves on this program." Lara opened her mouth to speak, but Michael cut her off. "We have the utmost respect for Denzel Washington and for all of our guests. What happened here today was unacceptable, and we are deeply sorry." The apologies continued, but they rang hollow. Because everyone watching knew the truth. They had seen what happened. They had heard every word. And no amount of damage control could erase the memory of Lara Spencer's incredible arrogance and Denzel Washington's powerful exit. In his car, driving away from the studio, Denzel sat quietly. His phone was ringing nonstop, but he ignored it. He needed a moment to process. He had walked away from interviews before, but never like this. Never on live television. Never in such a public, dramatic fashion. But he didn't regret it. Not for a second. Because some lines cannot be uncrossed. Some disrespect cannot be tolerated. And sometimes, walking away is the strongest statement you can make. The driver glanced in the rearview mirror. "Are you okay, sir?" Denzel smiled, a real smile this time. "You know what? I actually am. I'm more than okay." Because at the end of the day, Denzel Washington knew who he was. He knew his worth. He knew that his legacy was built on decades of exceptional work, not on morning talk show appearances. And he knew that standing up for himself, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it was public, was always the right choice. Back at the studio, the show limped through the rest of its broadcast. Guests were rescheduled. Segments were cut. And through it all, Lara Spencer sat there, slowly realizing the magnitude of what she had done. Slowly understanding that her words had consequences. Slowly recognizing that the power she thought she had was nothing compared to the power of integrity. The crew packed up equipment with unusual silence. Normally, there was chatter and laughter after a show, but not today. Today, everyone just wanted to leave, to get away from the toxic atmosphere that Lara had created. Robin Roberts gathered her things quickly. She had been a professional broadcaster for decades. She had handled breaking news, natural disasters, and personal health crises on air. But she had never been as embarrassed as she was in that moment. Embarrassed for her show, for her network, and for her colleague who had shown such poor judgment. Michael Strawn left without saying goodbye to anyone. He had a lot of thinking to do about whether he wanted to continue working in an environment where something like this could happen. And Lara Spencer sat alone in her dressing room, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The face looking back at her was the same face she saw every morning, but somehow it looked different now. Smaller, meaner, less sure of itself. Her phone buzzed with a text from her agent. "We need to talk. Now." She knew what that meant. There would be meetings, apologies, possibly suspensions. Her career, which had seemed so solid just hours before, was now hanging by a thread. All because she couldn't control her ego for 10 minutes. All because she thought she was untouchable. All because she forgot the most basic rule of broadcasting. Respect your guests or lose everything. Outside, the sun continued to shine. The world kept turning. And Denzel Washington drove toward his next destination. His reputation not just intact, but enhanced. Because he had shown the world what it looks like to stand up for yourself with class, with strength, and with an unshakable sense of self-worth. The interview that was supposed to promote a film had become something much bigger. A moment that would be replayed and discussed for years to come. A reminder that respect is not optional, and that sometimes the most powerful word you can say is no. No, I will not accept this treatment. No, I will not let you diminish me. No, I will not stay in a place where I am not valued. And with that simple act of self-respect, Denzel Washington had walked out of Good Morning America and into a legacy that was already legendary, but had just become even more so. The cameras had captured everything. The microphones had recorded every word. And the world had witnessed what happens when entitlement meets dignity, when arrogance meets grace, when someone who thinks they have all the power realizes that real power comes from knowing your worth and refusing to compromise it for anyone. Lara Spencer had walked into work that morning thinking she was invincible. She had left knowing she was anything but. And somewhere in between, Denzel Washington had reminded everyone watching what it truly means to be a professional, to be respectful, and to never, ever let anyone make you feel less than you are. The story would spread like wildfire. Clips would go viral. Think pieces would be written. But at the center of it all was a simple truth. Treat people with respect or face the consequences. And on that bright morning in that television studio, those consequences had played out for all the world to see. Denzel Washington had walked away. And in doing so, he had walked away a winner.